do a 30-minute chest training workout. That appeals to people, not because people are lazy, not because guys don't want to spend hours in the gym, but a lot of us just don't have that kind of time to spend. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to AMA. I'm gonna try something a little different today. Little change of scenery. Apologize if it's a little bit bumpy. Once we get on the highway, I think it'll be a little bit smoother sailing. Figured we'd give this a shot. Comment below at the end of this, let me know what you think. Do you like it in my car? How do you want it? Let's jump into it. So the first question on the list was pertaining to Flex Lewis. Person writing in said, how do you think Flex would have done at this year's Olympia if he had competed in the Open? I'm not sure exactly how it ended for Flex. There was a period of time where, Flex having mastered the 212, geez, I don't know how many times he won that thing. A million. Flex was pretty much unbeatable in that 212. There maybe a couple close calls with a few guys over the years, but more or less, Flex Lewis was definitely the king of that 212 division. And I know that for Flex, he really had to kill himself to get down to 212. Getting down, okay, to a body weight that your body doesn't really want to go to because you've put on some significant muscle, that's not easy. I know Flex had to really brutalize himself. He had to starve himself. I know he had a bit of, digestive trouble. It was starting to take a toll. And I think Flex always wondered, how would I fare in the Open? He had made the decision to compete in the Open. It never came to fruition. I don't know exactly what the reason was. What was the instance in his career? There was one time where he competed, I think, in an Open and competed against an Open guy who was big and he beat him. I forget what that was. I'm doing a shitty job right now. In the past, if you had asked me how would Flex Lewis fare in the Open, being relatively short, Flex, I want to say, he's probably closer to 5'4", 5'5". It's very easy for a guy who's smaller in stature, and I'm not calling Flex small, not by any means, because he's extremely heavily muscled. But for guys like that, when they're standing next to a guy who is, several inches taller and 50 pounds heavier, can sometimes be that they get overlooked. This year's Olympia was very interesting in that regard because you saw Hadi and Derek, shorter bodybuilders who both came from the 212. And what did you end up with? Fucking number 1 and number 2 on the Olympia stage. Do I think Flex could have won it? I don't see why not. If Flex was competing as his 212 self against Hadi or Derek, no. But obviously we would have seen a much, much bigger, broader, thicker, and just as peeled Flex in that Open division against Hadi and Derek. Do I think he could have won it? Yeah, I do. It's a bummer, of course, for people who are fans of Flex, myself included, to never get to have seen him, in the Open and take a stab at it. But at the same time, the career doesn't last forever. Flex had a hell of a run. He had a long, prosperous, extremely successful career, and I'm sure he's very, very satisfied with what he's accomplished. And, I talk to Flex occasionally. Flex is one of those dudes, coming from Wales, strictly middle class, comes from a blue collar family, super down to earth guy, hell of a bodybuilder. What a freak. Even to this day, a couple months ago, I was out at the Olympia. To this day, I don't even think he really works out much, compared to what he used to do. And he's still an absolute freak. Next question. Evan, what are we looking at for rests in between giant sets? All right, so you guys may or may not have seen some of my more recent videos. I do a 30-minute chest training workout. This is very, very common for me. I'm pressed for time. Got a lot of shit on my plate, as I'm sure a lot of you watching do. And it was actually a very, very successful video, and I think a lot of that is because that appeals to people, not because people are lazy, not because guys don't want to spend hours in the gym, but a lot of us just don't have that kind of time to spend. It's very rare that guys have the type of sponsorships where they can afford to just train all hours of the day and go about things in a leisurely way. And truth be told, things have changed a lot in the bodybuilding industry. Even if you are a star bodybuilder nowadays, you still have to hustle outside of that because it's not enough anymore to guarantee decent money. You could be one of the best bodybuilders in the world and still not make shit. All the companies, they want to align themselves with, hate to say it, but kind of social media superstars or people who have amassed large followings because the companies want to leverage those followings. They want access to your followers. If you're a bodybuilder and you've been able to amass a large following on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, you are valuable. And that has become the new currency, which is pretty crazy because me and Jose Raymond were just talking about it last night. None of that shit used to matter. So much focus has been shifted away from that. And I don't know. I don't know if it's that people don't desire the size and gnarliness of a professional bodybuilder, or they don't go down that road because they figure it's not worth it. They're like, I'm gonna fucking kill myself to achieve it. The companies don't even really care about it. And even if I'm wildly successful competitively, it guarantees me nothing. Not to mention, and this was another person's theory, I don't know if it's necessarily mine, but they said, the newer generation doesn't want to work, they don't want to put in the work to gain that kind of size. They would rather push for the classic physique type of look because they don't have to do what professional bodybuilders need to do to be competitive. And that might or might not be the case. I don't know. If I could go back all over again and classic physique existed, would I still pursue the bodybuilding route? I don't know because, to be my height, I'm 5'11". I think the cutoff for classic physique is like 220, maybe 2.25. Now, at 23 years old in my first bodybuilding competition, I competed at a rock hard 225. So the size that a lot of the classic physique guys are carrying, I don't want to say it's underwhelming, but it's so far apart from what it is to be a pro bodybuilder. And you want to know something? I love the look I had at 2.25. If that avenue were available, if that competitive venue did exist, maybe I would have gone that route. I don't know. But make a long story short, guys are going that route. And even if they are a star competitor, they need to very much participate in the business of bodybuilding. They're not spending all hours of the day in the gym either. But back to me and you. We've got business to attend to, we have work, we have family, we've got shit to get done. A lot of mornings I'm training at 5:30 a.m. I want to get it done by 6. Giant sets, right? What better way to fry yourself in a lightning fast manner? When I train chest, I'll usually start with a flat barbell bench press. I'll hit that, I'll hit machine flies, and then I'll hit dips. 4 rounds of those, and I'm fried. And that takes me at max 30 minutes. What's funny is, since I started doing that, I would have assumed, okay, Ev, don't rely on this, don't do this all the time because your size and strength is gonna drop. Surprisingly, the number of reps that I'm getting with the weight is actually increasing from week to week. Totally contrary to my expectation. If you train hard enough within those giant sets and you push it hard enough, you'd be shocked at not only what you're gonna maintain, but what you could even gain. What does rest periods look like in between those sets? Well, when you're going from exercise to exercise within the giant set, there's no rest. So if I hit the bench press, I'm gonna get up and immediately go to the fly machine, then immediately to do dips. Okay, no resting in between those. But once I finish those 3 sets or one complete giant set, probably take 3, maybe 4 minutes, maybe even 5, because what I'm most interested in is giving a full-on effort to my next set. Generally, when people ask about resting in between sets, whether they're doing giant sets or just conventional sets, that's always my answer as well, as long as it takes to be able to give a full-on effort to your next set, especially with larger body parts. When you're training chest, when you're training legs, when you're training back, and you're doing big movements, squats, deadlifts, barbell rows, bench press, it's gonna require a little bit of rest in between sets in order to push the maximum amount of weight for maximum reps, which for me, simply put, that's always my goal. Maximum weight for maximum reps. When somebody asks me, what's more important, heavy weight or high reps? I would say both. If you can squat 405 for 10, what's even better than that? Squatting 405 for 20. You want to use big weight for big reps. If you can do that, you're growing, dude, all right? So take your time in between sets, be able to give a dedicated effort to the next set. You'll be surprised, even though you're gonna finish this in no time, the results that it produces. When I was starting out, I was always very afraid of training that way. When I first started, it was only the compound movements, heavy as possible. I didn't usually go above 6 or 8 reps. I was obsessed with moving more weight. I would never dream of doing something like supersets, because in my mind, I'd be like, well, whatever exercise I put second in the rotation, I'm not gonna be able to get as many reps as I would if I did that set fresh, which is a valid point, but when I stopped doing that all the time and I started doing, maybe some more supersets or more drop sets or things like that, and exhausting the muscle further, pushing the muscle further, I started to look more like a bodybuilder. Although I will say, training heavy, doing those compound movements and sticking to a 6 to 8 rep range early on, I built a lot of size and strength. Maybe I looked more blocky, whatever the case may be, but I built a hell of a base that way. And I do think that a lot of guys now, at least what I see in the gym, I don't see a lot of guys moving big weight. And it's not all about the weight, of course, but I do think you need to be strong, because as I just said, how else are you gonna move significant weight through a higher rep range if you don't have the power to do so? You need to build it first in those lower rep ranges before you can take that weight into a higher rep range. The only way you're gonna squat 405 for 20 is if you could squat, 5 plates for 10 plus. Building strength is undoubtedly important. But once I lightened up a little bit and started doing more drop sets, more supersets, rest pauses, anything to exhaust the muscle more fully, I started to round out, I started to look much more like a bodybuilder. So don't be afraid to do that. It could be a little bit of a blow to the ego, but and I'm not saying to do it every week, every workout, maybe once every third week, every other week, once a month. I don't know, just fucking try it. You're not going to go backward training that way. Question, what kind of coaching services do you provide? And do you have any examples you can share? Person signs up with me. I begin with an initial consultation, and it's fairly in-depth. I take down a lot of information about the person, everything from food preferences, foods they like, foods they hate, foods they're allergic to, ask them about their daily routine, their workout schedule. I essentially try to gain as comprehensive of a picture of a person as possible, because when I'm putting together a protocol, it's not like I'm like, here, well, send me your height and weight and I'll send you a diet. It doesn't work like that. And by the way, if you're working with a coach and that's the way they do it, you should probably run. So in order for me to put together a protocol that's going to be even remotely useful or accurate, I need quite a bit of information. So I begin there, then I put the protocol together. Protocol consists of diet, supplements, training, and cardio regimen. People have the option to purchase just that, like a one-time thing, which I think is, generally speaking, a huge waste of money. But I offer it because people want it. But I feel that it's kind of useless without the ability to kind of work with someone in implementing it, because it's really the changes that take place over the next, usually it's 12 weeks. That's kind of my most popular coaching package. People buy a 12-week package and they check in with me on a weekly basis. I provide photos. They give me feedback that I ask for details about digestion, their energy, pump, strength, basically what's going on in the gym, how compliant they were with the protocol. And based on all the information I receive, I either make changes to the protocol if need be, or I leave it alone if everything is working great. To give somebody a one-time plan and like, okay, here, implement it. If you don't have the ability to come up with a viable plan, then chances are you're not going to be that successful implementing it or making appropriate changes either. Because a lot of people can come up with a fairly reasonable diet, but when it comes to the process, whether you're trying to lose fat, gain muscle, most people, when left to their own device, pros as well, okay? So I'm not knocking anybody or making fun of them, but it's hard to know exactly what changes to make. It's hard to judge yourself appropriately. So that's really where the value of working with a coach comes in, is the ability to have someone and to utilize their expertise and their eye and to make appropriate changes. In a lot of instances, Believe it or not, it's about, yes, sometimes it's about cracking the whip. You'll put together a diet for somebody saying, geez, this is a very strict diet. There's plenty of cardio in there. Why am I not seeing changes from week to week? And then, it's a very delicate relationship. You don't want to accuse people of anything, but when you say, hey man, level with me here, how's your training intensity been, or how's the cardio intensity been? Well, I actually missed a few sessions and I'm probably not pushing as hard as I can. It's like, okay, like that's all fine. I just need to know that as a coach to know whether it's something I'm not doing or it's something you're not doing. Or sometimes you dig a little bit deeper and you find, dude, don't add any food, to what I put in the plan. How are you preparing your chicken? If it says, if a meal is 8 ounces of grilled chicken, 8 ounces of sweet potato, and a tablespoon of coconut oil, how are you preparing that meal? Well, I'm sauteing the chicken in some oil. So it's like, well, wait a minute. So now in addition to the tablespoon of coconut oil, you're also sauteing in what's probably at least another tablespoon of some sort of oil. And that's times 3 meals a day. So, geez, that's a lot more calories. So, okay, now it makes sense that things aren't happening in the way that we're expecting them to. When you're working with a coach, part of it is being held accountable. Part of it is just developing a reasonable protocol. Another part of it is making reasonable changes. So there's quite a bit of value in working with a coach if it's the right one. You don't want to work with people who just tell you to take a bunch of drugs. You don't want to work with people who have too many clients and they don't get back to you in a timely fashion. All those exist. And then of course, there's some really great coaches out there as well. Anybody who's interested, you can go to my website, centopani.com, look in the store. There's a little bit of info about my training services. You could also email me, evan@centopani.com. Even if you just have some questions, I'm happy to give some answers. But that's going to wrap up this episode. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching. Subscribe, comment below, subscribe to Centopani Circles on Telegram. And I'll see you guys soon.